The Syracuse Common Council is expected to vote soon on whether to buy software for first responder drones to use in 911 calls. The actual drones have already been purchased. Civil rights and privacy advocates have been sounding the alarm about their use. Public response has been strongly opposed to the technology, but use of similar police drone programs is growing around the country. Should the council, the Common Council, fund the system and let police use it here in Syracuse, Anirban?
On the first take, I don't think they should be used. Because they're without addressing very, very important potential violation of Fourth Amendment rights, right? So one can see this as a giant red flag and a kind of a mission creep that, oh, you say something would be used on a certain kind of benign way, but then it creeps into kind of this overwhelming presence of like mass surveillance, scooping up bunch of data, right? So for example, would the drones be used only when they have a warrant? And would those drones only search those places where they are supposed to find something? Would they have the list like a warrant has, right? Otherwise, you're trying to go find someone who had done a graffiti and you're moving over my backyard. I don't want you to take the picture of my backyard.
The point is when someone calls 911 to have the drone be an initial response perhaps to get there even before a police officer can get
That's
there.
exactly. But when we see with the Chula Vista and other police departments who have been doing it, 1 in 10 of their flights, they can't explain why they were flying. The reason was given unknown reason, right? So I would say that yes, if you want a certain kind of help to move forward and see what is happening, if there's an active shooter, you want to go check, sure, you can get a warrant or you can get certain statutes. You can follow a statute.
Get a warrant in an active shooter situation. You can go out and get
there can be some statutes saying that, okay, in case of active shooter, you can go and you can collect only the data that is required and you have to purge the rest of the data. Otherwise, you're constantly violating my Fourth Amendment rights. I don't want you to hover over my backyard or my roof or look through my window and my cars. But these things are built in such a way to actually violate your Fourth Amendment rights constantly.
Nina?
Everything Anirban just said, I disagree with very vehemently. And here is why. Basically, I don't see a downside to better policing. Better policing is very strongly correlated with lower crime. And certainly, I imagine the Syracuse City Council and other lawmakers are able to put in place various protocols to ensure that they are only used in exigent circumstances and for emergencies. I, for example, would not like to see these drones used for crime prevention because that will become profiling, nor for that matter for investigations, but for ensuring that the police are able to gather sufficient information before they arrive on what could be a dangerous scene or a scene that requires resources. This is a good use. Perhaps this could cut back on the overtime problem that Syracuse has had. I say this and anything else that's going to improve policing and thus improve safety. We are already an over-surveilled society. Every time I walk my dog, I'm walking past 10 or so rings that sort of, ping ring bells as I go. Is that what I'm calling them?
Ring cameras, yeah.
Ring cameras, yeah. And so that's an issue. And if there were exigent circumstances, the police can already run through your backyard without a warrant. But again, it should be truly exigent, not for investigations, not for prevention, but for supporting law enforcement.
And there can certainly be, it's easy to imagine a situation in which this would be helpful to police who might be going in, rushing to a scene where there's some danger, which they don't know what it is.
Absolutely. Well, one of the examples in our research was that the police were able to see that gentleman they weren't sure, was it a gun or was it a phone? They were able to see exactly which it was. And so that determined sort of their level of response. And that would be a good thing because we know there have been cases where people have actually had a phone, police thought it was a gun, et cetera, and vice versa. But the problem I have with all of this is, and that's why I'm not quick to say, yes, we absolutely should, no, we shouldn't. You pointed out that the drones have already been purchased, but I have just tons of questions, and I don't really think there has been enough time for public comment. One of the issues is the lack of time for public comment. Another issue is why did you authorize the purchase of the drones if you hadn't already made the decision that the police could use them? There's a disconnect there that seems a little odd to me. There's no clear picture of what will be the ultimate cost, because you have to have a quote unquote pilot who's in sort of a pilot center to sort of watch the monitors and send the drones out. There's supposed to be, at least they're saying there will be some sort of observer to make sure the drones are not in a space that they're not supposed to be. And they're saying, well, this can be perhaps an older officer or someone who's on light duty, et cetera. So that seems to be unclear. The policy you suggested should be developed hasn't been developed yet. There's no clear plan. There's not a discussion of police liability. You know, what if your drone malfunctions and the police don't get to that scene and there's a real problem? Or what if the drone goes to the scene, says, okay, this is, you know, sends back the message, this is not something that needs a police response, and the drone's headed back and things get out of control, the police don't get there in time. So there hasn't been a real discussion about police liability. What will be the role of civilians in all this? Is there going to be civilian oversight? So that's my concern before we even get to should we. I don't think there's been enough procedure developed.
And you did mention there that there wasn't much of a plan, and the city did, or the police department did initially try not to go through a normal review procedure.
They tried to scuttle the review process, then people started crying and then say, oh, you know, we are going to do the review process. And then guess what? 67% of people who responded to that said that, no, we don't want these drones.
Hang on a
right?
second.
Let's give me 1 second here. And you know, I always hear this, right? This ticking time bomb hypothesis. Oh, you know, the police are going to do this. But at the same time, you are using these extreme situations to basically bring in a technology which they are saying can be used for low priority calls like vandalism, graffiti, loud noise. Are they going to now hover above protesters in Syracuse? Why are they going to do that?
Please do, to ensure there's no bomber. But that 67% was based on a review of comments. So that was not a systematic study at all.
Yeah, I welcome a systematic study, of course, but I'm extremely against this idea that the police can just use the drone to hover around neighborhoods, to mass surveil, to go in protests and find out who they are protesting. You know,
Okay, we're going to have to leave that right there.